special meeting held virtually, of course. I'd like to recognize the fact that we are actually holding this meeting on the lands of the Coast Salish people. Move the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Westbrook. Second. Councillor Philbert. Discussion. All in favor?
Just want to clarify that we have the one late item that we're adding.
The field of crosses. Why don't we put that down as staff reports? 4C is a good spot. If that works. So move the agenda as amended. Thank you. Seconder. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Business arising for the minutes. Councillor Harris.
Sure. So this is just something that's in the next few years, the incumbent automobile manufacturers will start releasing light trucks that actually have electric engines for them. This is one way we look at reducing our emissions. So rather than jumping into it and then finding out that it's a lot more money than we expected, it's good to get a staff report because we're also going to have to factor in where do we charge those light trucks if that's the direction we go in as a town. But I just think that getting a staff report while we're looking at some of the budgetary planning for the future, especially with the relocation of the public works yard, it's a good idea to make sure we're planning ahead for all the different aspects of that. So if that's okay, just move that. And there's no date on when the report would be necessary to be produced.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Filmer, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, I think it's a good idea. Oh, Councillor Westbrook, sorry.
Thank you, Maryse. We're always concerned about how much additional work we ask staff to do. I think this is part of our strategic plan as far as reducing greenhouse gas, so that's okay. But I'd just like to ask staff if this will require a lot of time, or how much time they think this will take to produce a report.
If I can answer through the chair.
Please do.
That's a good question, and staff did bring up the notice of motion and discussion. We do have some preliminary information, so we thought it would be appropriate to at least bring forward a high-level report that can, I think, hit the key points that Councillor Harrison is bringing up, and just highlight the opportunities and the upfront investment that would be possible to achieve that. I think it's also timely in that there is typically a turnover of different grants that takes place for fleet conversion. And so this would be potentially one of the areas that we could look at. So we don't see this taking up too much time for a high level report. Of course, if we wanted to go towards something a little more in depth, then we'd roll it into to some larger reports at a later time.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. That gets into the public and statutory hearing on NENZL. Bear with me while I read this. Pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act, the public are invited to make representations to Council regarding matters contained within the proposed bylaw entitled Town of Qualicum Beech Land Use and Subdivision Bylaw Number 580, 1999, Amendment 545 Denzel Road, Bylaw Number 580.119, 2020. After the Director of Planning introduces the bylaw, the first person registered on the speakers list will be invited to unmute their microphone to speak. When it's your turn to speak, please state your full name and your address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and staff will provide a verbal warning when you have 20 seconds remaining. Your microphone will be muted after 3 minutes have elapsed. All comments must be related to the subject bylaw. Any unrelated comments will result in your microphone being muted again. After each person registered on the speakers list has spoken a first time, I will invite any other members of the public to speak. Please indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise the hand feature on Zoom or by dialing *9 if you are participating by telephone. Once everyone has had the opportunity to speak once, I will invite the public to speak a second time for a further 3 minutes. There will be 2 opportunities to speak. Following the second call for speakers, I will declare the public hearing closed. Luke, please introduce the bylaw.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ruiz. This public hearing today addresses a property at 545 Nenzel Road This is a 5-acre property at the intersection of Nenzil and Qualicum. The owner of this property has made an application to amend the zoning to change from rural 3, A3 to rural 4, A4, to permit 6 rural rental cottages in addition to what's currently permitted. The current zoning permits 2 single-family homes and 2 garden suites or secondary suites for a total of 4 dwelling units. The new zone, rural 4, has been specifically created to permit 6 new rental cottages in addition to the 4 permitted dwelling units. A4 is a new zone. It would be the first in the town created under Bill 23, which is provincial legislation passed in 2018, which gave municipalities the ability to zone residential tenure under specific circumstances. So essentially what that means is that the rental cottage, the rural cottages would not ever be able to be sold, being able to, they would be retained as rental and there would be no option short of a zoning amendment in the future. This zoning amendment has received first reading and recently second reading on August 19th. The public hearing was scheduled for today on September 16th. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, and to hear comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Heather, is there any written submissions?
Yes, we have received 15 written submissions, 4 in favor and 11 opposed, and those are on the website and also form a part of the binder, which can be reviewed at the office.
Super, thank you very much. A quick question to Heather and Haley and maybe Daniel. If you have a written submission in, do you have authorization to speak on it as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to make sure that's clear. Okay, Haley, you can invite our first speaker, please.
All right, first up is John Wood.
Welcome, John.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks to Mayor Weiss and Council for this opportunity to speak. My name is John Wood. I live at 466 Troon Close in Qualicum Beach, and I would like to make the following comments in favor of the Beech Creek Cottages development at 545 Nenzil Road. This is a truly innovative and out-of-the-box development. We have not seen anything like it before. It will have a strong sense of community while still providing privacy to each tenant. The cottages will have small and highly functional floor plans. The wall and roof components will be manufactured off-site, which will provide higher quality and longevity for those components. Integrating laminated wood components will support the BC forestry industry and will look wonderful. It is close to town and all amenities. In fact, it is a shorter walk to town than from Chartwell or Eagle Crest. It retains a rural feeling due to the clustering and the secluded location. It addresses climate change adaptation by using a very small footprint and highly energy efficient design. It is a responsible stewardship of rural land. It will have minimum impact on land, water, and air ecosystems. And it will encourage electrification of the vehicle fleet among the tenants. In summary, this project is beautiful, it's energy efficient, it's affordable, and long-term rental housing in a pocket neighborhood design. It is what Qualicum Beach needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Haley, whenever you're ready.
And next up is Laurie Mole. I don't see her in the list, but I do see a J Mole, so that could be from the same computer.
Welcome. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jay.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name's Jason Mole. My wife, Laurie, and I live at 925 Qualicum Road. We share the north property line with the proposed development application. And our 2 acres are adjoining to 5 acres to my wife's parents. So we, between the 7 acres, we share the whole north property line with the development property. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in opposition of this application and trust that the mayor and council have received our detailed letter outlining our concerns and reasons for being adamantly opposed to the rezoning development application that includes questions regarding BCC's Beech Creek habitat and impact to the neighboring rural properties. We chose to build our long-term family home on this rural acreage, surrounded by other A3 properties as well as nearby ALR properties. We were also not naive regarding the potential development plans at Pheasant Glen property at that time and also that are ongoing. So we are not anti-development. In discussion with the applicant, he had emphasized that this proposal offers limited financial flexibility and primarily feasible due to that he already owns the land. The model that he is following is from Ross Chapin's Concepts on Bungalow Courts. The first paragraph of the bungalow court section in Mr. Chapin's book emphasizes that small developers are attracted to the layout because the bungalow courts are highly profitable as rental properties. This seems to contradict what the applicant is stating to us as more of a lean financial benefit and primarily a service to the community. I urge the mayor and council to consider the very limited benefit to the community as a whole, as this development is obviously more self-serving, emphasized on the information provided to this point. How can this project be considered a champion model if the developer has also stressed such limited feasibility in that if the person does not already own the property, it does not make financial sense? I've already stressed our beliefs on the negligible benefits to the community versus the direct benefits to the developer. The question I also have is, why does this rezoning application not require an OCP amendment, but 850 Eagle Crest Drive does require an OCP amendment? Both properties are outside the urban containment boundary. Both are within the green belt.
20 seconds remain.
And both are not zoned for the proposed use. So in closing, it is a nice looking concept in the wrong location, and I urge you to deny this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Haley.
Okay, and then next up is, on my list I have Deborah McKinley, but I don't see her in the list. I also have Marlis Diamond is after that. So Marlis, if you want to go ahead.
Are you with us, Marlis?
I thought that you were taking care of the muting. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I thought that was your department. Anyway, I'll start over again. I'm Marlis Diamond, and my address is Suite 516, 121st Avenue West. I support the proposed development of Beech Creek Cottages at 545 Nensel Road. The information meeting that was held October the 8th was very enlightening, and every aspect to this proposal was explained. The project answers the long identified need for affordable rental housing. This visionary proposal is for a grouping of 6 small homes in a lovely, secure setting. Besides the affordability, it offers companionship and neighborhood support in an attractive small cluster, and it's not age specific. The natural environment and the new long-lasting and sustainable building codes have been given top priority. COVID-19 has changed our world. The experience of the pandemic has heightened stress and strengthened the desire for people to connect with nature with neighborhood support nearby. This small development could be an example for life in the post-pandemic world and duplicated in other parts of the town without any negative effects on the surrounding areas and adding a desirable new dimension to the quality of life in Qualicum Beach. It is a little bit painful when any kind of a proposal is brought forward that we often hear the comment, it's not the right place. That phrase has sounded the death knell to many previous proposals, which has left us in the deficit position for affordable housing for a number of years. I feel that the proposal for Beech Creek cottages has been possible because no new land purchase was required and the proponent has been able to work with CMHC. There has to be a degree of almost an altruistic motive in doing this because I don't think that it's the normal profit-making scheme that is sometimes associated with new developments. I think we must endorse this project and hope that it might be the first of many. Thank you.
Very much, Marlis. Whenever you're ready, you can just go ahead.
And the next up would be Deb McKinley.
Hello,
Hello, Deborah, how are you?
I'm fine. So it's Deborah McKinley of 346 Nensel Road, down from the proposed development of Dean Dragers. And I'd like to refresh his memory that in 2005, when the first Pheasant Glen Golf Resort proposal came through, he said he was really worried about the increased traffic and the additional noise from as well as subdividing 5-acre lots, smaller to 2.5-acre lots. So this is exactly what he's doing. So it's a bit hypocritical that he says, you know, the neighbors don't care about the noise or the subdivision. Well, we do. Okay. I've got a few points here. It is not close to town for everyone to walk. Yes, Dean walks, but I don't think you're going to find many people slugging their groceries on their bicycle or walking with their groceries. Not going to happen. Another point, how do you know it's going to be affordable when he has not even been able to access financing for it? This is so disingenuous to say, well, we're going to do this wonderful 6-cottage development and it's supposed to be affordable. Well, what is affordable? Is it $1,000 a month? Is it $12,000 or $1,200? Or is it $1,500 a month? There's no guarantees on that. I'm really, really aghast that this council would even entertain a development considering the proximity of it to Beech Creek. This council has spent, I think, in excess of $1 million on Beech Creek flowing into the Salish Sea. And what are you doing for the headwaters? Nothing. There are a lot of points that I have covered in my letter to council. I hope you will take some time to read it. And, you know, he spoke of a covenant, but what good is a covenant if you people decide, I don't want it anymore? And as well, will he be living there forever and always? I don't think that can be guaranteed. I guess I'm saying, asking you and suggesting that this development really is not a good idea because there are no guarantees. I know there are no guarantees in life, but there are no guarantees with this development, as pretty as he makes it look. And a lot of those drawings, by the way, were very disingenuous. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Haley?
All right, and up next is Pat Jacobson.
Hello, Pat.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. Pat Jacobson, 606 Sumac Drive, Qualicum Beach. I would like to express my objection to the rezoning proposal for 545 Nensel Road. I'm in total concurrence with one of the APC members who described it as a great project in the wrong place. This is clearly contrary to the OCP and is being proposed outside of the OCP amendment process, which dictates public consultation. It appears that public consultation in general is not highly favored by council. Consider that we have had 25 special in-camera council meetings since January. There has not been a committee of the whole meeting since January 22nd, one of the only vehicles for two-way dialogue between the public and council. There's not been a mayor's open house since February. It is now mid-October and the public still cannot attend Zoom council meetings on a live basis. I understand these are challenging times, but we should be making some progress on public inclusion in town affairs. It feels like our local democratic rights are slipping away. Secondly, this proposal is in the Beech Creek watershed, which runs up from Memorial to the headwaters in the Pheasant Glen area. There are cutthroat trout and coho salmon in Beech Creek, all the way along Qualicum Road and along Nensel. The town is investing heavily in the watershed, starting with the new spit. It should be noted that two major undertakings, the Task Force on Climate Change Adaptation, from which a final report was published in March 2020, and the Tree and Vegetation Management Plan, which has been worked on for some years, highlight the need for watershed protection plans as a priority. Watershed protection and water quantity and quality were highlighted as major sustainability goals in the Quality of Life Survey. Beech Creek has no watershed plan. To date, neither of these reports have come to council, and there's no apparent priority to take any action on them. Bottom line, there does not appear to be a commitment to develop a meaningful strategic framework around climate change and watershed protection, including no apparent need for any environmental assessment relative to this development. I think we are missing the richness of outcomes that come from public participation in two-way dialogue. Please take the time to read many other items that I covered in my letter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, and then last on the registered list is Dean Drager.
Welcome, Dean.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I had a bit of a statement to read, but I didn't realize I had 3 minutes, so I'm just going to sort of, I guess, address some of the massive misinformation that I believe is out there, especially in a blanket email that Deb
Just to be clear, Dean, you have 3 minutes twice.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to try get through some of this and then I'll come back to it.
Thank you.
There was a blanket email that was just literally just full of falsehoods and misinformation. And I'm going to read some of the stuff that Deb sent out to her group and whoever else received this. The application contravenes Qualicum's official community plan and urban containment boundary. There were established and agreed upon by town residents. What Deb failed to report again is that it contravenes some of the language of the OCP, but is also supported by other language in the OCP that speaks to exactly this style of housing on non-ALR rural properties. And certainly there was no mention of the APC's deliberation and ultimately of their supportive summary of this project in terms of the OCP framework. Deb goes on to say that the infrastructure was recently bought and paid for by the town and not by the applicant. In other words, taxpayer money funded the work, which is neither ethical or legal. There's nothing true about that statement. And I talked to Bob Weir today, and not one, and this is his words, not one red cent of taxpayers' dollars were spent on the money or on the water service that runs through my brother-in-law's property that I then paid for to bring to my property. If I sound frustrated and angry, guys, I am. Deb goes on to say that there's no guarantees these 6 units will be labeled affordable. The other being that there's a need for rental housing. And then there's some more dialogue around that. There's actually a restrictive covenant that mandates that these rentals be long-term and that they're registered and that be registered against my property. And then for this to qualify for CMHC's financing, which apparently I'm going to make out like, Donald Trump on this, I need CMHC financing to actually make the system work. And that financing is based on their universal definition of affordability. So this is very unclear to me how I'm, doing all these horrible things and trying to become rich in this when actually the reality is, and sorry about whoever's mentioned that Ross Chapin's project works here, talk to Mr. Ross Chapin. I think there's a dialogue in there from Ross that explains that this is a game changer in terms of rental housing built to this style.
20 seconds remaining.
All right, I'm probably not going to get through the rest. Apparently, this is a slippery slope that all the rural properties in town are going to follow. Again, that's ridiculous. Most of the properties are ALR that are there to protect, as a security blanket, province-wide, our food source. I don't know how these A3 lots are going to start this stampede. I guess maybe that's a talk.
Get you up for next time.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so that was the end of our registered list, but I do see some people with hands raised. If anybody else wants to be on the list, you can raise your hands now. And the first one to raise their hand was Ezra Morse.
Hi there, this is Ezra Morse, 720 Garrett. I wasn't planning on talking, but I guess this is a public hearing, and I guess that's what it's for. So, there's been a few people who've said some things to describe this project. One was out of the box thinking. I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to call it a little bit absurd. I mean, why are we even talking about this? This bylaw, this new zone allows cottages, we're calling them cottages, they're over 1,000 square foot. I think my first starter home was like 820 square foot or something. That's all I could afford. 1,000 square foot homes. We're allowing people in the rural lands that are supposed to be protected for agricultural use, forestry, to sprawl out, throw up another 6 homes on them. These are homes. So now we're going to have 8 homes, and then also 2 secondary suites and 2,500 square foot of housing. That's a lot of house on a rural place. It's next to absurd. And when you think about that, yeah, it is a slippery slope. Just as I think Mrs. Diamond mentioned, this could be duplicated elsewhere. And that's the problem. And going back to what Dean said about how this is partially compliant or partially not, no, it's in conflict. You can look at any proposal and you're going to find things that are conflicts and you're going to find things that comply. And this is, it's pretzel logic that we're wrapping ourselves up into circles saying, well, since we're in complete contradiction of all of our rural policies, but yet it does provide rentals, then we're just going to let this go. No, that comes down to the people. That comes down to public consultation. And that's the problem. It's just not happening on this. We're making a major leap with no OCP amendment, no talking to people. The reality is here, at the end of the day, with this property, we want rental units. Of course, we have affordable housing coming into town. We're densifying into our core. We've talked about this at length. So why are we sprawling? Why are we doing both simultaneously? It makes it really disingenuous now when people come and they tell us, oh, we have to densify here because it saves our lands. No, it doesn't. Because one way or another, people are going to twist themselves up and they're going to come up with a justification for conflicting our OCP. Look, the reality is we're trying to work out a special deal for one developer that's going to be replicated somewhere else and have large scale effects.
20 seconds remaining.
I think it would be wiser if that one developer figured out how to do a project of this scale within our urban containment boundary. Then there's no more problem. Then we're not opening Pandora's box for all of our rural properties. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. Haley.
Okay, so I don't see any other first timers that have raised their hands. If the way to raise your hands on Zoom, if you've never done it before, you can hold Alt and press Y. Otherwise, we have a couple people that want to speak for a second time, Your Worship.
Perfect. I think if we're no one else to speak the first time, let's move into the second time, please.
Okay, so first up we had Mr. Mole.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to just add a couple more comments. And again, thanks to the other speakers, both for and against. good gathering of information. Dean had mentioned the language in the OCP that supports the proposal. And after scouring the OCP for hours on end to really try and rationalize our decision, support, non-support, the only wording in the OCP that we could find that might be used and tied to this is the word cluster. And we did not see that directly tagged to anything to do with rural development. So maybe we missed something, but that was the only word that seemed to maybe open the gate a little bit here. Also, just a comment regarding the environmental impacts that have been emphasized. Just for mayor and council to consider, again, there's been a lot of detail about potential environmental impact of the Beech Creek, the work that's been done, the future potential of protection and what goes around with that. But also that this development, if it were approved, has a very strong likelihood of having a 5-acre piece of property right at the headwaters of Beech Creek with upwards of 20 people on a septic system. And that's not common to begin with, especially bordering an environmentally sensitive area that has been emphasized for protection and invested in by our own community. It seems to go against and contradict all the energy and finances that have gone into it. So those are the main things. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Haley?
And next up is Deb McKinley.
Again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so Deb McKinley again. I wish to refute some of the things that Dean Drager said about water, because I received a lot of information from the town in a Freedom of Information Act that I had requested regarding the hookup of water. And Mr. Weir said that no monies were paid. Okay, who paid for the actual hookup? And he said, well, it will be done by Pheasant Glen because they requested it. Still, there's a few big questions remaining. Where are the applications for the water hookup? Where was the sign off that it was actually done? Are there itemized bills? Haven't seen any. All of these properties are outside of the urban containment boundary. So where are the fees that have been paid? Apparently it's $7,500 per if you're outside of the urban containment boundary. And that's exactly what happened. Now, Dean does not like my wording of a slippery slope. Well, as Ezra mentioned, you know, for 6 little cottages being built in a rural area, it is a slippery slope because there are many other rural areas or rural areas. And if you start building on all of them, there will be no green space left in Qualicum Beach. I resent that. I also resented that we bought that property knowing that it is rural. It is rural land. And having lots of other homes, as has been proposed with Pheasant Glen, is absolutely abhorrent. It is really abhorrent. We don't want urban sprawl. If Dean wants to build, why won't you sell him some land across from the airport near the dog park? That's great. It's within the urban containment boundary and the OCP allows it. Sorry, Dean, this is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Thank you.
Haley,
And then next up would be John Wood.
welcome back, John.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. It's interesting listening to the two sides of the conversation here. It seems on one side, we have people who believe in reason and logic and facts, and the other side seems to believe in things like Pandora's box and slippery slope and other things which are really not conducive to having a good two-way conversation. I think on balance, this is a very good idea. I do not believe it's in the wrong place. Somehow we went from 6 cottages to 20 cottages on the property, and all on a single septic system. Sorry, that's tough. And Ezra was also talking about 2,500 square feet in total area being on those 5 acres. Well, the houses in the area where I live, some of them are over 2,500 square feet, and we don't consider them to be huge houses. Anyway, I repeat what I said before. I believe this is the beautiful, logical, sensible, efficient, and timely project to go ahead in the town of Qualicum Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, and then next up we have Ezra Morse.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly clarify that
Ezra, you're muted, I believe.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that real quick. It's 2,500 square feet in accessory buildings with an additional 6,250 feet of rental units, which is what this would be, in addition to the 2 primary residences and their 2 secondary suites. So this is that additional 6,250 square foot maximum on these lots, according to this zoning. So just to be completely straight, we should all be very aware of exactly what we are allowing to be built here. Thanks.
Thank you. Haley.
Okay, I don't see anyone else with their hands raised. So if there's anyone else that wants to speak, again, it's Alt-Y, or if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. And then up next, we have Dean Drager.
Thank you.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, Dean, you're up.
Okay, so guys, I don't even know where to go with this one. There's so much misinformation again that just kind of came out. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to build is something that I think makes so much sense for the era and time that we live in. And the option that no one wants to talk about, because I'm building this environmental hazard, is that I can devoid my property tomorrow of all the trees on it, tear down my existing homes, which is not sustainable, apply for a building strata, and build 5,000, 6,000 square foot homes, which seem sustainable to some of these people, along with 2 accessory dwelling units to step code 1, which is a disposable building, but that's a conversation for another time. And that seems to be totally, in line with the official community plan as interpreted by this group who is adamantly opposed to this. The hypocrisy is ridiculous. The misinformation is ridiculous, and I'd need an hour to sort of sift through it and explain, including the headwaters, which I don't even need an environmental study being 100 feet away from the stream or river, creek, because of the design and the setback requirements for a step or a type 1 septic system or wastewater management system. I'm over 200 feet away. Again, I'm frustrated because it's so easy to just throw crap and nonsense on the wall and trust people are paying attention and listening. This is like the Biden-Trump debate. I should never have come. There's no winning in this. Logic and rationale left the door when the mics came on. And I guess at the end of the day, council makes the decision, hopefully based on APC's recommendation, but not necessarily. But I believe council will ultimately make a decision that I think speaks to the true state that we're in. And I think, I
20
hope,
seconds.
I hope you sort of sift through the reality of some of the comments and and formulate your own conclusions. I am very comfortable with this project. I hope you are too. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, and I don't see any other speakers who have their hands up, Your Worship.
I don't know how to put my hand up.
Oh, okay. It looks like that was, sorry, was it one of the Todsons?
No, that was Vera Khan.
Oh, sorry, Vera.
You. Hello?
Yes.
Vera Khan is up, I believe.
This is Larry Kahn here.
Okay.
I live next door to Dean's property here. I moved here 30 years ago, before Rupert Road was even in existence. And I didn't move out here to be next door to a development. Sorry, Dean, but you're in the wrong place. I don't know what else I can say, but
The only thing I'm going to add is we have nothing against the quality of the work, the designs, the ideas that have been proposed by Dean's Development for building a house or 6 houses. We have no qualms with that at all. What we don't like is that we're having a zone change to allow it. Next door, which is like, I live 50 feet from this development, which does not conform to the reason I moved to Rupert Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley?
That's the end of the people that have their hands up, Your Worship.
Thank you. Hearing no further comments, I hereby declare the public hearing for the bylaw entitled Town of Qualicum Beach Land Use and Subdivision Bylaw number 580/1999, Amendment 545 Nenzell Road, Bylaw number 580.119/2020 closed. No further comments may be received by council on this matter. Any questions or comments must be referred to staff. Thank you all for your contribution to the public hearing. We'll take it all into consideration. Thank you. Staff reports. Luke, you're up.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor Weiss. So first I'd note that the monthly building permit report and the monthly bylaw report are in your agenda for information. If there are any questions, I'll take them at this time.
Any questions on those reports, gentlemen? Seeing none, thank you very much. This is where we'll put in our late adder. Sorry?
Oh, sorry, please proceed.
The late adder with the previous green sheet has been changed somewhat. So I'm going to read the new one. So after changes, that the town of Qualicum Beach grants permission to the Rotary Club of Qualicum Beach and the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 76 to create a field of crosses to honor veterans from World War I and World War II, as requested in the correspondence received September 29, 2020. And further that the Rotary Club and the Legion be permitted to erect the display on the grassy area kitty corner from the Qualicum Beach Curling Club on Railway Street between the railway tracks and the road from November 6, 2020 to November 12, 2020.
I'll move.
Second. Seconded by Councillor Filmer. Councillor Harrison, and you for discussion, were you seconding as well?
Oh, I wasn't sure if you'd moved the motion. I thought you were just reading it out. So I was just going to move the motion.
It's moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Bylaws, zoning amendment, 545 Nenzell Road, staff recommendation. Luke?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Weiss. So we heard a lot of comments from the public earlier, reflecting, a lot of the challenges and complications when we're interpreting the OCP. And so certainly when considering this application, staff has looked at many other relevant policies in the OCP. So specifically, some of the things noted in the memo, section 2.1.1, urban containment policy number 4 says that additional urban development should not be approved outside of the urban containment boundary. So clearly, this proposal does conflict with that policy. However, subsequently in section 2.2.2, policy 12 states the town doesn't support further opportunities for residential development, also in conflict. However, going on, policy 1 does state that the town shall encourage innovative approaches to the provision of housing. This proposal is innovative in its approach and would provide the town with rental housing. It meets some of the policies in the OCP while conflicting with the others. As a result, policies specifying no growth in this area must be weighed against policies that support innovative approaches to housing. I'll reflect on some of the discussions during the OCP review. Clearly, certainly at the time, and I think it still continues, our residents highlighted that the current approach to housing was not working. It was making the situation worse. And so there's lots of discussions around new ways to approach the provision of housing and trying different approaches. And I would highlight this as a different approach, and call it a pilot project, call it an experiment, call it an exploration of a different way. It does stretch the bounds of the OCP. There's no doubt about that. But the alternative approach, which would be to extend the urban containment boundary, I think would send a very different message to landowners in this area and perhaps in other rural areas. Because if you extend the urban containment boundary, what you're doing is saying, this is where urban growth is intended. That's very different than allowing a cluster, a small cluster of housing. It's very different. There's a distinction between the two. Urban development to me would mean, you're looking at something like Chartwell, Eagle Crest, Westridge. That is clearly urban development, but there's a big difference between that and what's currently being proposed. So, a lot of these issues came up in the APC meeting, and I think staffs have also wrestled with many of these conflicts. So, I don't pretend that this is an easy discussion. But on balance, when staff weighed the positive and negative aspects of the proposal, staff do support advancing with this one. The Advisory Planning Commission, similarly, after weighing the issues, also recommended in favor of advancing with this. So, in summary, permitting the development within the rural area will allow the town to evaluate the compatibility of these rural rental cottages without opening up the area to urban development. Very important. Including this area within the UCB would signal that urban development potential is being extended to this area, which is not the case. The overall density is still very low, compared to a typical residential density, and there's no plan to develop the remainder of the subject property to urban density. So an OCP change would be heading in the wrong direction. The size of the dwelling unit and the footprint of the proposal is compact, which minimizes disturbance to the land in accordance with the rural policies. If the floor area of all the buildings were combined, the impact on the land would still be less than the floor area of some of the rural residential properties along Rupert Road. So, driving along, there's very big, very beautiful houses there. The footprint of those two houses, which share 5-acre lots, is approximately the same as all the buildings being proposed on this lot. So the overall floor area is comparable. So, at the time of writing this memo, without the benefit of formal community input, staff recommend giving the application third reading. Bylaw should not be adopted at this time as there are still outstanding covenant requirements. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time. Thank you.
I move third reading.
I'll second.
Further discussion, gentlemen. This is Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I've got a lot to say on this one. First, I think when we're looking at building affordable housing, there has to be compromises. I understand this is outside of the urban containment boundary. I understand that it maybe doesn't directly align with our OCP and maybe doesn't, or with aspects of the OCP. But when we're looking at building affordable housing, there's compromises that we're going to have to make. And I strongly believe that this is a compromise that we have to make. When we start talking about, sacrifices that we have to take. If we start looking at selling a piece of land to a private developer to build an affordable housing project, good luck on making it an affordable housing project, especially if we're looking at doing it through a private through a private developer. Here we have a developer that is offering their own piece of land to build something that is in the greater good, I believe, in the greater good of the community, and is trying to do something in the greater good, and it's something that we're looking for. There's not a lot in Qualicum Beech that gets young people excited, especially development and rent and housing projects. There's not a lot that gets young people excited. As I fit into that young person category, and I've got a lot of friends that still live here, when I talk about this project with them, it gets the ball rolling in the head, because they go, well, this is somewhere that I could live. This is somewhere that interests me, and this is something that could give me still a place at home. And I think that's a really important piece. I like the project. I think it's got, it's got great opportunity to advance. Should we build 6 and in a couple of years, someone else needs to carry the vision onwards. I believe it gives it that grounds to do so. Again, I've supported it. I supported this even before I chose to run for council back in, when Mr. Drager started starting the conversation about this type of project. I supported it back then. I supported it through the campaign. I campaigned on housing projects like this. And there's not a lot of places in town where we could build something like this. I think this has been a long time coming. I think this is going to be something really great for the town. And I look forward to seeing this advance, and I fully support it.
Very much. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. I just want to echo some of the things that Councillor Filmer said. I believe he has the right of it where you do have competing interests with this development, but you're looking on the balance of the whole, what serves the greater good. Certainly you can look to a couple aspects where people might have issues, but in terms of the need, I mean, one person said, why are we talking about this? I believe we're talking about this because roughly 100 renter households in Qualicum Beech in the last census spend over half their money on their rent. I think that's a sufficient enough demand to give us an incentive to look at how we can do rental housing. Another person said that it was hypocritical for the location, but I'd refer them to the letter to the editor they wrote a month and a half prior, where they said there's a huge demand for rental housing and affordable housing. And I hope that the letter writer has a conversation with the same person who spoke at the public hearing, because those are two diametrically opposed positions. Beyond that, in terms of a Pandora's box, I think that we are already dealing with a Pandora's box that's been opened. We have housing prices equivalent to Langford, but revenues in terms of household incomes that are significantly below the Capital Regional District. So in sum, when we have a huge problem, and I'll just highlight again, I mentioned this in a previous meeting, when the mayor and I spoke to then Minister Robinson, then minister a couple of weeks ago, just before the election call, when we mentioned the percentage of people who cross that 30% threshold, which most people use for affordable housing, and we said it's 56% plus in Qualicum Beech, she literally said, wow, over the phone. And it's not very often I've heard a minister say, wow, to something in surprise. We do have a pent up demand. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's not any individual person's fault, any individual council or provincial government's fault. It is where we are. And I think this makes a small impact on that for the better. And for me, I think the aggregate good is served in this instance.
Thank you very much. Very well spoken. Further conversation. Go ahead, Councillor Filmer, then I'll wrap it up. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I just do have a question through the chair to staff. One concern, I spoke with a couple of residents on the phone today, and I've also been corresponding with some residents that were for and against the project. But one of the questions that I've heard the most is about Beech Creek. So if Mr. Sales can just touch on that. I trust that staff has put a lot of research and study into this. I'm sure the developer also has put a lot of research and study into this to make sure that it is not going to affect our Beech Creek. But as it is going to be on septic and it is a good number of units being added, there's not any, I was just wondering if staff do see any concerns or complications should we continue with development.
Through the chair, Mr. Weir may have additional comments, but certainly, given the distance from the Beech Creek alignment and the I guess you'd say the sophistication of modern septic fields, there's not a big concern from the perspective of staff. Mr. Weir, would you like to add anything to that? He may not.
Here I come. No, a modern and properly designed septic field within 10 or 20 feet of the field, the water is going to be cleansed by the soil bacteria and the actions within the tank and the field. We see no detrimental effect. As a matter of fact, maybe a beneficial effect by introducing constant interflow of cleansed water that may form part of the base flows of Beech Creek. So there's no negative effect and potentially a positive impact.
Thank you very much. I think that answers your question, Councillor Filmer.
Absolutely, it more than answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah, it most certainly does. So before I call the question, I think it's important that we all speak up. I want to speak on this one. I've known Dean for a while. I mean, of course, that is not from real estate. That is from, he built a place on 2nd Avenue across from Canada Trust, which when my dad died some years ago, my mom was looking for a rental and moved into one of Dean's places. And I can assure you that everything he builds is not only his intentions to build something good, but people who move in these places are like his family. He treated like my mother like as one of his own, and I'll never forget that. So, you know, I don't think he's in it for the money, not even for a second. I believe that. So I think one other point I would like to make, I hate reflecting 2 years in about the campaign, going door to door, and I ran into a lady on mail who suggested that she would like to sell her house, but stay in town. But there's nothing for her to live in. She could sell her house, and her friend did, and had to move to Nanaimo to live. They don't want to leave here. They want to stay here. I think this little cluster, what we're looking at today, is something that I could see a group of people like, you know, being extended family as they move into this place. So I've got good feelings on it, and I do understand both sides of the argument, but I am definitely in favor of this one. So any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, zoning amendment 156 Fern Road West. Luke, you're up.
Yes, thank you. This is a proposed zoning amendment for a property currently zoned residential being proposed to convert to commercial use. The proponent would like to operate their office from this property, and there would be no residential on site. The recommendation is that this bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move adoption.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Harrison, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Council procedure bylaw. Daniel or Heather?
So the bylaw is here for council's consideration for adoption. We have been dealing with the amendments to the procedure bylaw for over a year and a half, and we're hopeful that we've now considered all council's comments in this final bylaw, and it's there before you for adoption. We did make one amendment that Councillor Walker had requested, and I spoke of at the last meeting, was just to add to the cheat sheet table, take from the table and lay on the table. So there is that one change since last council review.
Very good, thank you. Someone moved it. Thank you, Councillor Fulmer. Councillor Harrison seconding. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Tax exemption bylaws. Luke, you're up. Was that's not Luke's, probably John?
No, I'll take this one. Oh, sorry. No, I'll take the next one. John, go ahead. Sorry.
How about we just move adoption?
Move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. That was A and B, was it?
Yes.
Luke, you're up.
Okay, well, thank you. The next items relate to the East Village. We have a local area service bylaw and an East Village loan authorization bylaw. Essentially what this does is put into place a funding mechanism to fund all the public realm improvements. That includes your sanitary, sewer, water, beautification, everything needed to develop the area to the vision needed in the overall landscape plan that was adopted by council. So that this would basically fund all the improvements on 2nd Avenue East, There are some areas to either side that would not be included. And the property owners that benefit from this are on 2nd Avenue East as well as the brewery down at the end of the road. So they would each have their proportionate share of the cost, which would be extended over a 30-year period by way of the loan authorization bylaw. So this got 2 readings at the last meeting, and the recommendation tonight, this afternoon, is that it be given a 3rd reading. Thank you.
Someone willing to
Third reading.
Sorry, Councilor.
Councilor Westbrook moved A and B. I think Councilor Filmer seconded that. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded. Somebody? Councilor Westbrook. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Passed again unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Great meeting, and enjoy your evening.